This is the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast, presented by Massage Envy, the first podcast devoted entirely to Arkansas baseball. Featuring insight from Arkansas baseball color analyst Bubba Carpenter. Here's Matt Jones.
Arkansas just keeps winning series. The Razorbacks, it seems like there's people that have doubted them all season, but you look with 2 weeks left in the regular season, they're 36-12 overall. They've got a 16-8 record in the SEC, a 2-game lead in the SEC West. They could potentially clinch the division this weekend against Vanderbilt. We'll talk about those scenarios today on the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast. Matt Jones with Bubba Carpenter. And Bubba, I mean, you know, you've heard this, I'm sure, from people, and I think it stems from the offensive struggles that this team has had throughout the season. But like we said last week, I think that, you know, it probably overshadows what they've done from a pitching standpoint and a defensive standpoint. And then they go to Auburn and the offense gets rolling for a couple of games. And yeah, 2 weeks left in the season. They've won 3 out of every 4 games they've played this year. They've won 2 out of every 3 games they played in the SEC. Those are really solid numbers. And I think at this point in the season, anybody who doubts whether or not Arkansas is a really good baseball team just isn't paying attention to the Razorbacks and what's going on across the country.
No, I think you're right, Matt. And I say it all the time, cream rises to the top, man. And I like where we're going with this team. I say it every week that we're just getting a little bit better every week. And you really saw it come into play this weekend. And I'll tell you what you really saw this weekend out of this team. You know, we lose a midweek game to Missouri State, and it was a lackluster effort. And look, I'm a giant, everyone knows I'm a giant Razorback fan. They overlooked Missouri State. They were looking to Auburn, and that's understandable. You know, we go to Auburn, we get down 5 runs early to Auburn on Friday night, you know, and there were some things that happened in that game. It would have been real easy for this team to just mail that one in. And I tell you what, they bowed their neck and they found a way to come back and win that game. And that says a lot about this team. I mean, it really did. There were some calls. It seemed like just things just weren't going right Friday night. And all of a sudden, boom, you know, something switched, and, you know, they ended up winning. And it was pretty impressive. And then to win the whole series there at Auburn, it was a good weekend for us.
No fault of the Razorbacks, but there have been a lot of their opponents that were supposed to be really good this season that just haven't panned out. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, maybe even some of the opponents that they played in the non-conference schedule. This was the first series, I thought, where you look at it and it's like, that's a feather in your hat series. Maybe the LSU one too, but the LSU one was played at Baum. You know, you're playing in friendly surroundings. Auburn had been really good this year at home, and they gave Arkansas a challenge in all those games down there. But I think to win 2 out of 3 at Auburn, that probably to me looks like it's the biggest series win of the year to this point for Arkansas.
Well, it is. And you know, the way we won them, we had to scratch and claw and find ways to win, and good teams find a way to win. And we did. And I thought we battled through a lot of adversity. I'll tell you, for me, I look at the little things, Matt, that happen in a game. I honestly, when Michael Turner was up to bat Friday night and he got the catcher's interference call and they didn't call it, you know, where he hit the catcher's mitt and somehow they missed that call. And then ultimately gets a base hit to left, and then he gets called out on an interference call between first and second with the bases loaded, nobody out. That was huge right there. And I really think from that point on, I think they were just, you know, because you tell your team all the time, look, if the umpires affect the game, then you didn't do enough on your side to win the game. You know, you can't blame it on the umpires. I think they got really mad right there, and they said, but we're going to find a way to win this. And they just kind of flipped a switch, and boy, they went out from there on and just, you know, Borfin hits the 2-run homer. As soon as he hit that homer, I'm like, man, we got this game. And it just everything kind of, the momentum kind of shifted right there, and it was just a different team. And I thought we looked great up and down the lineup.
Yeah, I felt like that call, not just the catcher's interference, but the runner's interference against Michael Turner. I thought that really fired up the team. And I thought it was the turning point in the series, to be honest with you. And I know they lost a game on Saturday, but it seemed like maybe some of that Missouri State sluggishness had carried over into Friday night. You know, they weren't doing a whole lot offensively to that point. They were in the middle of a pretty good inning there in the 5th, but it just seemed like the whole game turned on that one call, didn't it?
I think so. And we did. We looked flat. You look at the team in the dugout, we just looked flat. We looked down. But boy, after that, it's like you could just see us bow up and you could just see the toughness of the team. And I love that, man. I really love it because, I know I watch these guys and I know what's inside a lot of them. We have some guys that are tough, gritty players. And I didn't like what happened. And I really think it fired them up. And like you said, I really think it was a turning point in the weekend, even though we lost Saturday, you know, and we hit some balls hard Saturday. That game could have been totally different. If Robert Moore's ball is just a few feet to the right, Brady Slavin's, there were several balls hit Saturday would have changed that game. Technically, we could have come away with a sweep, but you look at the pitching, we talk a lot about the hitting, but man, how awesome was our pitching? Will McIntyre was awesome. I was proud of Jackson Wiggins, the way he battled back. Had a good start for us on Sunday. I mean, so many things. I just feel like everything's starting to come together at the right time, Matt.
I do too. On the topic of this being the biggest series win of the year for them, I think if Arkansas on Memorial Day, when they announce the top 8 national seeds, if they're one of those top 8 and they don't have to leave Fayetteville during the course of the regionals or the super regionals, I think we're going to look back at the Auburn series and say that's the series that really, solidified them being a top 8 national seed, because there's been a lot of talk this year about the RPI is not good, the strength of schedule is not good, and not that either of them are bad, they're just not quite what we're used to with Arkansas. And I think like people use the 2021 RPI and strength of schedule and they compare everything against that. Well, that was a really unique schedule when you played Texas Tech and TCU and Texas at a neutral site. You had Louisiana Tech, you beat them in a road series, and that ends up being a regional hosting team. Who could have ever predicted, 2 years beforehand when you put that schedule together, that Louisiana Tech was going to have a team good enough to host a regional last season? And so I think it's kind of unfair to compare this schedule to last year's, but like I said earlier, you've just got some teams that haven't panned out maybe the way that you thought they should. And I think with scheduling, it's just a crapshoot when you're trying to figure out, because I know that these are things that go into their mind when they're putting the schedule together. How is this team going to affect our RPI? I've heard this year they tried to get Nebraska on the schedule and that didn't work out. But then again, Nebraska hasn't had a very good year in the Big Ten, not anything near what they did a year ago. It just kind of goes back to it's a crapshoot, and you just play the teams you got to play. You do the best you can and see how it works out. But I think right now for Arkansas, it looks like it is going to work out as long as they can take care of their business against Vanderbilt and against Alabama these final 2 weeks.
Right. And the thing I like about it, Matt, is we control our own destiny. We don't have to look and say, well, if this team does this, if this team does this, we control our own destiny. We take care of business this weekend against Vandy, then we go to Alabama. I think we're in good shape. We need to win a game or two at Hoover, then we win a game or two at Hoover. But I just like the fact that we control our own destiny, and I really like the direction we're going right now.
Arkansas's RPI moved from number 28 to number 20 after the Auburn series. There was a graphic during the series against Auburn said that no team has been a top 8 national seed with an RPI higher than 19. Tulane was the number 8 national seed in 2001 when they had the number 19 RPI in the country. Right now, if Arkansas can win a couple of games against Vanderbilt, can have some success down in Tuscaloosa, the RPI should take care of itself. One thing that I noticed, Bubba, is that kind of like what they did in 2018 and 2019 and 2021, this team has been really good in rubber games. They're 5-2 now in rubber games this year, and the only 2 rubber games they lost were the 9-7 game against Florida and the 11-10 game against A&M, where they, both games they were really competitive right until the end of the game, or maybe they were down and they kept coming back. There were comebacks in both of those games. I think that tells you a lot about a team. And we were talking about that with A&M a couple of weeks ago, how good they've been in those game 3s that decide who wins the series. And maybe not with a regional, but it tells you that if a team can get to a super regional, I would really take a look at the teams that have done really well in rubber games and favor those teams in a super regional setting where it's best of 3.
Oh, absolutely. And I say all the time, Matt, it starts at the top. It starts with DVH, and these guys are a reflection of DVH, and you start to see it when you get into that rubber game. who's going to step up and make a play, and the good teams find a way to win, the bad teams find a way to lose, and we just keep finding ways to win when we're in that situation. And you look at a couple of games that we didn't win, we put ourselves in a position to win that game, and that's what you want. You want to give yourself a chance. I think you go back to the A&M series, and boy, we had chances to win that game late and we didn't do it. But overall, I really like the fact that when things are on the line, these guys bow their neck and they find a way to get it done.
It seems really weird, Bubba, to say that a team had offensive success during a weekend when there was also a game where they got 3 hit. But I thought Friday and Sunday were about as good as Arkansas's looked offensively this year. They benefited in both games from some multi-home run swings. I mean, you had the 2-run homer from Borfin on Friday night, like you mentioned. Kendall Diggs had the big 3-run homer. Robert Moore had the 3-run homer over the 30-foot wall in left field. On Sunday, Braden Webb has a 3-run home run. And, it kind of reminds me of what we saw the week before against Ole Miss. The reason that they won the Ole Miss series was because they hit a lot of home runs that were worth 2-3 runs. But it wasn't just home runs against Auburn. You saw the team have success in situational hitting. All 3 games, they had a sacrifice fly. You had an instance Sunday where Jalen Battles hits a ball to the right side of the infield and they score on an RBI ground out or fielder's choice ground out. Other instances throughout the weekend where they were able to move runners by hitting the ball away from where the runner was going. There were some base running mistakes during the series, but I thought that overall it was about as good as we've seen Arkansas's lineup look all season. And even with that game 2 stinker in between, to score 21 runs and to get 26 hits and to have 15 walks in a series against a really good team at their home ballpark, I think those are really strong numbers.
Oh, I think so. I think it really is. And the thing is, you look at this lineup, and I mean, that's a tough lineup to maneuver. I really like the way they approached Gonzalez on Sunday. I thought we were going to have a hard time with him. I really did. But boy, I don't know what he ended up going 2 2/3. Gave up 9 hits, 5 runs, and they had to get him out of there because we were just having great at bats against him. And what I like, Matt, is we weren't swinging at that pitcher's pitch. I don't want to say chase. We weren't swinging at the pitcher's pitch. We were letting that pitch go, and we're waiting for him to make a mistake. Look, college pitchers make mistakes, and when you make a mistake, you got to hammer him when he makes that mistake. And instead of going up there and swinging at a pitcher's pitch, like Gonzalez, the job of a 2-seamer down and away is to get a ground ball. So don't swing at that pitch. Wait till he gets a pitch up and elevates it, and then you hammer that one. And that's kind of our approach against him. And I love to see that. And I thought we had a pretty good approach Friday night also. I thought overall on the weekend, even Saturday, like I referred to, we hit some balls hard on Saturday. And I just like our approach. I know they game plan really hard. They spend a lot of time on scouting reports, and it's really awesome to see, especially on a Sunday game against Joseph Gonzalez, how they went out and executed that game plan, got him out of there in a hurry, and got to the bullpen.
Yeah, in that 7th inning on Saturday, Robert Moore has a sacrifice fly that probably, if it's hit 5 to 8 feet further, that's a 3-run home run. And then in the next at bat, Brady Slavens lines into a double play where they double up Michael Turner at first base. Both of those balls were hit really, really well. It's just that's the way baseball goes. It doesn't always, work out. How about for Robert Moore? He hit 2 or 3 really on the screws, not counting the home run that he had Friday night. And then his only other extra base hit is kind of a weakly hit ball into center field where the 2 fielders, misplay it. I think that tells you all you need to know about batting average and all this stuff is that, a lot of times there's just luck involved too.
I think so, and I've said it all along. Robert's been the tough luck player on the team. At least the games that I've watched and that I've documented, especially at home, he's hit more balls on the screws over 100 miles an hour for outs than anyone on the team. I mean, he's just had tough luck, and so he's got a few of those little bloopers falling in. I think the game owes him a few of those, and so it was good to see him have a really good weekend, hit some balls hard. And I know, boy, when he hit that 3-run homer over the left field wall, I loved watching him run around the bases. He works so hard, and I know he's been frustrated at times, but boy, just to see him crush that ball and run around the base was awesome.
Kind of interesting that his success this year, Bubba, has come from the right side. He's hitting about 20 points higher from the right side than he is from the left. And that was his 5th home run this year. 3 of the 5 have come from the right side. Last year, he hit 15 of his 16 from the left side.
Well, I think he kind of, changed his approach from the right side a little bit. If you notice, he's a little closer to the plate this year. He's actually right on top of the plate from the right side, and he waits for them to make a mistake. And when they do, he hammers it. I feel like last year he was more of a guy that kind of pushed the ball to the right side. Didn't really drive it, kind of served it to the right side. Hopefully, Robert, I don't know if he's going to listen. He'll be mad at me for saying that probably, but he didn't drive the ball last year from the right side. And now he's a force. He's on top of that plate. And I tell you what, you make a mistake and he's going to punish you from the right side. He will from the left as well, but boy, right-handed, he is right on top of that dish, daring guys to challenge him.
Don't want to dig into too many numbers here, but one other number that stood out to me from the weekend, Arkansas was 18 for 60 with runners on base and 11 for 35 with runners in scoring position. Those averages are 300 and 314. And if you take away game 2 in the 2 victories, they were 16 for 42 with runners on base. That's a 381 average, and 10 for 29 with runners in scoring position. That's 345. Probably the best we've seen them, at least in those 2 victories this year at punching in runs with runners on base.
That's why you make the big bucks right there, Matt. Those numbers like that. I would have never gotten in that deep into the numbers, but I like it, buddy. Good work.
Appreciate it. The lineup, there are a lot of options right now with what they're doing from a lineup perspective. I think Peyton Stovall, it's going to be hard for him maybe to break back into the lineup right now with the way that Slavens is playing defensively at first base. You've also got Kendall Diggs hitting. I mean, in their 2 wins this weekend, they didn't have Chris Lanzilli playing in those games. And this is a player who has got the 2nd highest batting average on the team and went into the series with an 11-game hit streak. I think that just kind of shows you what they think about the depth that they have right now in their lineup. And I think it starts with Kendall Diggs and the way that he's really broken out the last 2 weeks.
I think so. I love Kendall Diggs at the plate. I love his approach at the plate. He doesn't expand the zone. He's a very patient hitter. I think at times maybe too patient. I think he takes some pitches sometimes that he should hammer, but I love the fact that he's a patient hitter. Just kind of takes what the pitcher gives him. If you look at the splits, Matt, you look at Lanzilli versus right-handed pitching, he's 315 versus lefties 310. Borfin, I'll go real quick. Borfin 226 against righties, 278 against lefties. Diggs 216 against righties, 364 against lefties. So that's weird. You got 2 lefties that are hitting quite a bit higher against lefties. Borfin's a small sample size, but you got guys that can hit again. You got lefties that can hit well against lefties. Now Zach Gregory, he's 299 against righties. He's only 105 against lefties. He struggles a little bit. Stovall's another one that's 308 against righties, 121 against lefties. Slavens, 279 against righties, 205 against lefties. He's a guy that could be, I don't know, you want Slavens in there just because he's such a big threat. He could be a guy, but if you take him out of the lineup and you don't have Stovall, you don't have a first baseman. So I guess, Michael Turner at first, Leach catching. I don't know what you do there, but yeah, it's hard to take Slavens out of lineup just because he's such a threat. At any time, he can pop a 3-run homer. So there's a lot of options for Dave Van Horn. I guess it's a good problem to have. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and it allows them to do things later in the games, pinch hitting, have a left-right matchup. Just I think that it allows them to do a lot of things with their bench that maybe they weren't able to do 3 weeks ago.
I think so. It's crazy to think that Lanzilli's not in the starting lineup, but boy, talk about a great veteran bat to come in and pinch hit late in the game. I mean, you've got it right there. Now, if that ends up being, what happens going forward, even Stovall, to get him in a game late, pinch hitting against a tough righty late in the game, could be an option for Dave. And it's just there's a lot of options for him there. And I know it's frustrating for these guys, especially you take a Lanzilli that, only started 1 game this weekend. He's a veteran guy been there, done that, and it's just tough, man. But that's life in SEC baseball right there. Tough to make that lineup sometimes.
And I don't think the book's been closed on Lanzilli at all. I think we're still going to see him start some games this year based on matchups. I was talking to Nate Thompson earlier this week. He said, one of the things that was going through their mind during the Auburn series, and one of the reasons they put Chris Lanzilli in the starting lineup on Saturday, even after they had some success Friday night, they're looking at things like swing patterns versus spray charts. Maybe spray chart isn't the right word, but based on pitching charts for the starting pitcher that they're facing. So there's a lot of things that go into this, and I don't think we've seen the last of Lanzilli in the starting lineup. But I think you're going to see a lot of mixing and matching based on the type of matchup that they think they have.
I think so. I think a lot of it is, first of all, you look at, the opposing pitcher, how does he do against righties versus lefty? I know, Gonzalez, his numbers are way better against Joseph Gonzalez for Auburn. He has a lot more success against righties than he does lefties. So you load up the lineup, obviously, with lefties that day. I think there's going to be a lot of chances. I agree. I mean, I don't want to say Lanzilli's not going to play. There's going to be a lot of options, a lot of time for him to get out there on the field. And there are certain matchups, you look at a guy, is he a guy that has carry on his fastball? If we're facing a guy that, can ride the ball at the top of the zone, that there's a lot of different things that affects who gets in that lineup. And those guys are really good at making those decisions. So I think they'll make the right decision.
You touched on this earlier, Jackson Wiggins and the performance that he had on Sunday. I thought might have been the best performance that he's had in a game since maybe Missouri in week 2 of the SEC season, just in terms of, there weren't walks. There were 2 walks, but it wasn't a high number of walks like we've seen in some of his other outings. Outside of a couple of swings in the first inning, I didn't think that Auburn really put a lot of good swings against him. I know Sonny DeShera had a home run to right field. It seemed like the wind might be pushing some balls out to right field. Auburn had a lot of right-handers hitting opposite field home runs throughout the weekend. But man, just to be where he has been, and for people to be doubting him and whether he should be in that game 3 starting role like they have, and for him to go out against Auburn in a rubber match in what some could say to that point was their biggest game of the year, and to pitch the way he did, and to do it after he had some adversity in the first inning with the error behind him, the home run, the 2 singles. I just thought it was an incredible outing by Jackson Wiggins, and it goes to show you what kind of potential is there.
Well, look, Jackson Wiggins, he's going to pitch in the big leagues. I mean, the guy's got tremendous stuff, but he really did show a lot of toughness. To your point, you look at the way that game started out. He's got an error. Cade makes an error at third. A guy swings at a 3-0 pitch and hits a home run. Then he gives up a couple more hits. I want to say one was a base hit to left, maybe an infield hit to the left side also. Ends up getting out of that, with 2 runs, 3 hits, and 1 error in the first inning. And then after that, I mean, he was good. He was really good after that. And, for him that's tough, because when things haven't been going well in that first inning, and that it could have snowballed from right there. But he figured out a way to get it done. And I use it a lot, bowed his neck. I think he bowed his neck and said, "Here, guys, I got this." And ended up pitching a great game. And so that was huge for us.
Who would have thought, after the way Wiggins pitched at A&M and against Ole Miss the week before, that he would be the starting pitcher who went the longest for Arkansas at Auburn? I mean, Connor Noland and Hagen Smith both had 4-inning starts. Wiggins goes for 5 innings. I think the rotation, it's been shaky somewhat the last 3 weeks, but it's still, I think, a rotation that a lot of teams would like to have. You get 39 outs, I think, from your 3 starters this week. Auburn got 34 from its 3 starters. More weekends than not, Arkansas's starting rotation, even in these instances where their guys aren't maybe going for as long as you would hope they would, they're not getting into the 6th, 7th inning in some of these games, they're still out pitching the other team's starting rotation more often than not.
I think so. I look at our 3 guys. I look at Connor Noland, Hagen Smith, Jackson Wiggins, and on any given day, one of those guys could go out there and give you 7, 8, even a complete game. they just have that kind of stuff. Now, the one thing that I'm a little concerned with, Hagen's velocity is a little bit down. I don't know if that's by design. He's just trying to sink the ball a little bit more. He's just trying to maneuver the ball in and out, but his velo is a little bit down. There's a big difference in a 88, 89 mile an hour fastball versus a 93, 94. So I hope everything's okay there. But, I love our three starters. I think, like you said, Matt, if you compare them to other guys around the league, I'll take our three guys any day.
After it started Auburn, Dave Van Horn did say something to the extent of he thought Hagen Smith might be hitting a freshman wall, so that they see this from freshman pitchers about this time of year sometimes where, like you said, the velocity's down, the performances aren't quite as good as they have been earlier in the year. And sometimes I think that is due to the fact that they've never pitched as much, probably, or at least during, one season as they do during this college season. What I mean by that is, they pitch a lot during high school. You've got your high school season, you've got the travel ball stuff that they do. But in terms of, from the beginning of one season to the end of just one season with the same team, it's probably a lot different for these pitchers, what they're seeing as a freshman in college versus anything they've seen previously.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that could be part of it when you're talking about Hagen right now. He might be just getting a little bit of dead arm right here. Maybe, throwing fewer pitches. He only threw 81 pitches over the weekend, give him a chance to rest. He didn't throw very many last week. Maybe this little bit of just throwing fewer pitches might be good for him. He might come out this weekend blowing 95. I mean, we don't know. But the beauty of it is I feel like now our bullpen's kind of come together to a point where if one of these guys falter, you got Will McIntyre can jump in for long relief. And we just got so many guys. I tell you what, I thought Zebulon looked great when he came in and threw. He was throwing 95, 96 miles an hour. His fastball slider looked good. He gave up a home run on a 2-0 fastball out over the plate. I mean, it wasn't a terrible pitch. It was just fastball away, and a guy, like you said, a righty went with it, hit it up into the wind, and hit it out. But I thought the bullpen, where we were at with the bullpen, we can afford to get these guys out of there. Where I think early in the year, Matt, these guys were throwing 90 to 100 pitches every time out because we really didn't know what we had in the bullpen. Those roles hadn't been settled yet. Now I think Dave and Hobbs, I think they're pretty confident what we have in that bullpen. And I think the guys in the bullpen are confident, so they can come out there and if we need to get a starter out early, we got a lot of options to go to down there. And I think that's going to help a lot, going in the latter part of this season.
Between social media, message boards, things of that, I keep up with what people are saying during the games quite a bit. And it was funny to watch Sunday how the mood changed within about 45 minutes of when Will McIntyre comes in the sixth inning of what's still a pretty close game. And people are saying, oh boy, let's see how this goes. And then by the end of the eighth inning, pitch him the ninth. I mean, it was just an incredible debut for him, I thought. I mean, he looked as good as I thought he had ever looked in those first three innings. He retired 9 of the first 10 batters, ran into some trouble the second time through the lineup, and Evan Taylor had to close it out. But to your point, McIntyre gives them another weapon in the bullpen, especially for like a super regional or an Omaha type deal, because it's different when you play in the regionals. I think you need to hold a starter for, potentially having to start a fourth game. SEC tournament, you may have to start 4 or 5 people during the course of the week down in Hoover. But, to your point, you've got McIntyre, you've got Vermillion, Morris, Taylor, Tigert. Ramage is pitching pretty well. He went through that little midseason funk, but it seems like he's been pitching better, in recent weeks. That's 6 pitchers, and I don't know that that's even all the ones that they feel comfortable about right now in their bullpen.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options down there, but Will was great. For him to do what he did in a rubber match at Auburn against a powerful lineup says a lot about what kind of person Will McIntyre is. He's got a good mix of pitches. I think he's really tough on righties. Fastball, slider, got a cutter he can throw. I think it's a good matchup for him versus the righties. I haven't seen his splits. I haven't looked at his splits versus lefties, righties, but I I know it's really tough on the righties, but what I like about him, he throws strikes. He comes in, he doesn't walk people. 3 1/3, no walks, 4 strikeouts. That's what I like is he throws the ball over the plate and lets our defense go to work for us.
Evan Taylor had another good weekend. Brady Tigert, I thought he had a good weekend, even though he had the error that was real costly for them in the 8th inning. Zach Morris comes in, pitches again, doesn't give up runs again. To me, the strength of this team right now is the bullpen. That's what's really carried this team, I think, throughout much of the SEC season, is even when you have the inconsistencies from your starting pitchers, even when you have games where, the offense may be only producing 3 or 4 runs, the bullpen has been very consistent. Maybe that's the word. That's been the most consistent part of this team this year.
I think so. And I tell you, you look at the way Brady pitched over the weekend. I thought Brady Tigert was great. People focus on the error he made. I mean, that's a ball bunted back at him. He had to make a quick glove side turn and try to make a perfect throw to the plate. A good throw gets the guy out at home, but he just rushed it a little bit, and that's a tough play though. And especially if you're a guy like Brady, that's he's full steam ahead. The adrenaline's rushing. That's a hard play right there for a pitcher to make that turn and make a good throw to the plate. But no, overall, I thought he looked great this weekend, and I really, you mentioned all the weapons down there. I really like the way the bullpen's coming, and everyone's kind of settling into those roles, and I think it's going to pay huge dividends when we get into postseason.
Another stat from the weekend, Bubba. Sonny DeShera, the number 1 hitter in the country, came in with a .436 batting average, finishes the weekend 2 for 10 with 7 strikeouts, and I think he walked 3 times. To put some perspective on those numbers, both of the hits, by the way, were solo home runs, opposite field home runs to right field. But the reason that he was in that situation leading off a lot of innings is that there were 3 or 4 times throughout the weekend where they got the 2-hole hitter out right in front of him with runners on base and didn't allow him to come up to the plate with 2 or 3 guys on base. I thought that was a really key deal. And then the one time where he did come up with 2 runners, I think there was a pass ball by Michael Turner, frees up first base. They just go ahead and walk him on Friday night. But in the 45 games prior to the Arkansas series, he'd only struck out 28 times. He struck out 7 times in 3 games against Arkansas, and it was the first time all year where he had multiple strikeouts in every game of a series. You go into the weekend saying, we're not going to let that guy beat us. It was Sonny DeShera last week, and they didn't let Sonny DeShera beat them, but they were also attacking him. They were pitching to him, and they pitched him really well as any team has pitched him all season.
Well, that's hats off to first of all, to the staff for putting together a great game plan to get him out. And then the pitchers going out there and executing it. I thought it was awesome. And, 2 for 10, his only 2 hits were home run. A solo home run's not going to beat you. It's like you said, him coming up with runners in scoring position, the 3-run homer is going to hurt you. But, if he pops a home run every once in a while, he's a good hitter. I think one was a 2-0 fastball from Hagen Smith. I don't know what the count was on the other one, but look, I thought we did a great job, and I'm watching this pitch, and we had him baffled all weekend. It's like when he was looking breaking ball, we busted him in with a fastball. I know Brady Tigert once, it looked like he was sitting straight curveball, and he just blew a fastball right by him at 95. And so I thought we did a great job. But you could talk about the game plan and the preparation all day, but it's still those guys out there on the mound that have to execute and get it done. I thought we did a tremendous job all weekend with Sonny.
The one real negative for Arkansas from the weekend was the errors, something we haven't seen from them this season. I think Jalen Battles had 3 errors. There was a throwing error from left field when Zach Gregory was playing there. Caden Wallace had a throwing error that contributed to a couple of unearned runs in the first inning of Sunday's game. And then, of course, Tigert had the throwing error on a play that the replay showed that he probably could have easily made if he would have just slowed himself down. What did you think about the errors? And do you think, is that a concern, what they had against Auburn? Because that wasn't the first weekend we've seen recently where they've had multiple errors. It seems like maybe this team is committing a few more errors in SEC play than they did the first half of conference.
I'm not worried about it, Matt. I think sometimes a team, they constantly hear how good their defense is, and then someone makes an error, and then they start to tighten up a little bit. I don't want to make another error. I don't want to be the guy that makes that second error, third error. But I don't think that's the case with this team. I really don't. I think we're really good defensively. I think we're going to continue to be good defensively. I don't know on Jalen's 2 errors. I don't know playing surfaces like at Auburn. I have no idea if that was a factor there, but I really like, there's 2 things that I really like. One is I love what Dave Van Horn said after he made the second error. He's like, I hope the ball's hit to him right here. I love that, because you got to know that your coaches have confidence in you. And the other thing is the fact that the ball was hit to him. He made the play, turn 2, we win the series. But I guarantee you, Jalen wanted that ball hit to him as well. And I also love what Dave Van Horn said about it. If you don't want the ball hit to you in the infield, then you better be an outfielder, because I jokingly say with my kids all the time, hey, if you don't want the ball hit to you, then try soccer, go play soccer. Because the minute you don't want the ball hit to you, that's when it's going to be hit to you. So you got to be confident. And, but no, to your point, I'm not worried about our defense at all. I think we're probably still the best defensive team in the country. I don't care what the percentages say. We're good. We're really good. I think we're going to continue to be good.
We have a tendency to focus on the errors when there is a high number of errors, but I think that takes away sometimes from focusing on the plays that they did make. I thought Caden Wallace made 2 really great plays at third base during Friday's game. Braden Webb laid out and made a catch during one of those games. Robert Moore and Jalen Battles up the middle made a lot of great plays. And, something that I mentioned earlier with Brady Slavens at first base, and this is nothing against Peyton Stovall, but Slavens is a bigger player. And I think sometimes that catch radius that he has, to steal a football term, really benefits them on some of those throws over to first.
I think so. I mean, he's a little bit bigger target, longer arms. He's stretched a little bit more. Now, with that being said, I've been super impressed with Stovall at first base. I thought early in the year, I know he saved a lot of runs on picks. He's picked, I don't know how many balls, saved Caden and Jalen and the guys' errors on balls in the dirt. But you're right. He's Slavens is a little bit bigger target over there, and he does a good job. He really does. And so, whoever's over there, I think we're in good shape. Either one of those guys, I think, do a really good job at first base.
The Whole Hog Baseball Podcast is sponsored by Massage Envy, voted the best day spa and best massage in all of Northwest Arkansas. Visit Mike and his staff in Tuscany Square at 2603 West Pleasant Grove Road in Rogers, or in Fayetteville at 3557 North Shiloh Drive. Massage Envy has services for everyone. MassageEnvy.com.
Massage Envy, with clinics in Rogers and Fayetteville, has been awarded Northwest Arkansas's Best Day Spa and Best Massage. One of the reasons is our care for athletes, both serious and recreational. We now offer rapid tension relief sessions using a high-caliber vibrating tool and total body stretch sessions like the ones used by the PGA. Both of these new services can be combined with the always popular deep muscle treatment. So whether you compete or just want to relax, there is no place better than Massage Envy.
WholeHogSports.com has the largest, most experienced staff of reporters covering sports in Arkansas. Football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. You'll find it at WholeHogSports.com. The website includes up-to-minute news, daily commentaries, and award-winning photography from the staffs of Hogs Illustrated and the Democrat Gazette. For subscriptions, call 1-800-757-6277. That's 1-800-757-6277. Or visit us online today. WholeHogSports.com.
You know, it never goes out of style, a great burger. And for a long time now, the best burgers around have been made at CJ's Butcher Boy. I've been stopping at their Russellville location for years to enjoy a double with bacon, cheese, and all the fixins. Well, the fries are always made fresh, and their shakes are made with real premium ice cream. And now that CJ's Butcher Boy has a Fayetteville location, too, on Weddington, you can bet I'll be there a lot more. CJ's Butcher Boy in Russellville and Fayetteville. When all you do are burgers, they have to be the best.
Welcome back to the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast. Now let's look at this week in the SEC, presented by CJ's Butcher Boy Burgers.
There won't be a team that goes undefeated in SEC play this season. Tennessee lost a series to Kentucky, who had that one and predicted before the season. Probably the most unlikely series that the Volunteers could have lost was the one they dropped in Lexington last weekend. They lost a 13-inning game on Thursday night, then lost Friday night's game that had to be resumed on Saturday due to rain that came down in the 8th inning of that game. Kentucky takes 2 of 3. They battled Tennessee in the finale as well, but the Volunteers pulled away with some late runs at Kentucky Proud Park. Other results last week: LSU beat Alabama 2 of 3. A&M took 2 of 3 from South Carolina. Ole Miss beat Missouri. Florida beat Mississippi State. And Vanderbilt won 2 of 3 games at Georgia. Bubba, Tennessee loses, and I think one of the things that stood out to me is that Kentucky Proud Park in Lexington, the dimensions are really similar to what you see at, it's not TD Ameritrade anymore, it's Charles Schwab Field in Omaha, or at the Hoover Met. Hoover Met's bigger than either of those parks, but especially from left field to center field, really comparable to what you'll see in Omaha and in Hoover. And the question that I have with Tennessee is this an offense that can produce in a ballpark where they can't hit it out 4 or 5 times a game?
I think they can still produce, Matt. They're good. They're a good hitting team. They can hit the ball to the right side. They can pull the ball. They do a good job with 2 strikes, kind of protecting the back of the plate. They lost the series at Kentucky. I didn't get to watch the games, but I think they're a team that's good enough to adapt and find a way to win, regardless of what ballpark they're in. I mean, they just have good hitters up and down the lineup. I think Kentucky's got some pretty good pitching, though. I really do. We saw it early in the year here, but as far as their lineup goes, I think they're pretty good at adapting. I'm not sure what went wrong this weekend, but I think when it's all said and done, they're a good hitting team.
Of course, they can still pitch, and that makes up, as we've seen with Arkansas, for any type of offensive woes. It's just we haven't seen that from Tennessee this season, and it's going to be interesting, I think, to watch them in Hoover, and if they get to Omaha, whether or not they can play in those big ballparks. It looked to me, I did watch some of the games, Bubba, and it looked to me like Tennessee, they were swinging for the fences just like they did in Knoxville. It's just that the fences were a lot farther away, and I think it's an interesting question whether or not they can adapt to a big ballpark.
You know what? I hope you're right. I really do. I hope I'm wrong when it's all said and done. But I'm one of those that says hitters hit, and they find a way to get it done. Now we've talked a lot about the wind at Palm Walker all year and how we've lost 15 to 20 home runs. Some people say as many as 25 home runs. But good teams find a way to get it done. Good hitters find a way to get it done. And so, but I hope you're right.
Injury note from last weekend: LSU's star infielder Jacob Berry broke the tip of his index finger, which kept him out of a couple of games against Alabama. I think he's expected to return before the season is over. But when you talk about LSU being right there in the SEC West race with Arkansas, that's a very notable happening.
Yeah, that's huge. You always you start to worry this time of year, and you look at what happened to us last year going into Hoover. Brady Slavin's twisting his ankle on first base. I think that was a huge factor, and how our season ended. I think that was one of the things that kind of played a role in the offense kind of slumping there at the end of the year. And so, yeah, you just got to you never know this time of year. Bodies start to break down.
Tennessee's got the lead in the overall SEC race. They've got a 4-game lead on Arkansas. Honestly, Arkansas is the only team that could potentially catch the Volunteers, and I don't think a lot of people expect anybody to catch Tennessee, especially when you look at the remaining schedule they have. They played Georgia 3 times this week in Knoxville. Georgia's a team that could potentially beat them, but I think it would be a surprise to a lot of people if Georgia won that series. And then Tennessee finishes the season down in Starkville with Mississippi State. Arkansas's got a 2-game lead in the West, as we mentioned. The Razorbacks 16-8 in the SEC West. LSU 14-10, A&M 14-10. Both of those teams are 2 games back. Auburn fell to 3 games back with the series loss to the Razorbacks. There is a scenario this week, Bubba, where Arkansas could win the SEC West. The easiest way to explain this scenario is if Arkansas were to sweep Vanderbilt and A&M and LSU both lost at least one game in their series, the Razorbacks would be able to claim at least a share of the division, and then they'd be able to win outright with one game at Alabama. There's also a scenario where Arkansas could win the West with a series win over Vanderbilt. Much more unlikely scenario, though, because it would include A&M losing their series to Mississippi State this week, LSU losing their series to Ole Miss, and then Auburn would have to lose at least one game to Alabama. But the point remains, there is a chance Arkansas could win the West this weekend at Baum.
Well, yeah, you're making my head spin with all that, Matt. But I tell you, if you look at the remaining schedule, I love where we're at. I really do. I think I think we're going to do well this weekend. I think we match up good against Vandy. Vandy's got good pitching. They always have good pitching, but I got a lot of confidence in our staff to hold their offense down. I think they're a little bit top heavy. But if you look at some of the scenarios, you look at A&M, they've still got, they're at Mississippi State. They got Mississippi State at home. Then they go to Ole Miss. That's not an easy schedule. I mean, it's really not, especially if you finish out the season at Ole Miss. Their backs against the wall. You know, they're fighting right now just to just to get in the tournament. So I mean, I don't know, anything can happen there. I wouldn't want to have to finish out the season playing at Ole Miss, and I still say that's a good lineup. That's just surprisingly they just haven't figured it out yet. So I don't know, but I like the fact that we control our own destiny.
Mentioned a lot of these games, but this week's series in the SEC, Georgia is at Tennessee, Kentucky is at South Carolina, Florida goes to Missouri, Mississippi State is in College Station against the Aggies, Alabama goes to Auburn this week, and Ole Miss is at LSU. SEC teams in the polls this week: Tennessee is number 1, Arkansas is number 4, LSU is number 15, A&M is 16. Auburn fell 2 spots to number 20 after the series loss to the Razorbacks. Vanderbilt is up 2 spots this week to number 21 after they beat Georgia, and Georgia is number 22 in this week's poll. CJ's Butcher Boy Burgers are the best burgers in 2 towns. You can visit the original at 2803 North Arkansas Avenue in Russellville, or the newest location at 3484 West Weddington Drive in Fayetteville, just minutes from the ballpark. Skip the line and order online or download the app in your app store. CJ's Butcher Boy Burgers, when all you do are burgers, they have to be the best. And Bubba, we mentioned this earlier, and I want to go a little bit more in depth now on the 2 missed calls. I thought one of them clearly a missed call, the other is a judgment call. But the catcher's interference and the runner's interference in game 1 at Auburn, both of those plays involved Michael Turner. I think it was a 1-1 pitch. He fouled off a ball when the replay clearly showed that his bat hit the mitt of the Auburn catcher. And then there was the more judgment call when Jeff Wright, the second base umpire, said that he, I guess, impeded on the fielder making a play in the 5th inning of that game, and he was called out, and really affected what I think could have been a really big inning for the Razorbacks. Instead of being maybe within a run, it was 5-2 at the end of the 5th inning. Now they came back and they won the game. Explain to me what you saw on those 2 calls, and I kind of understand why we don't have replay on the runner's interference, because it is a judgment call by the umpire, but I don't understand why we don't have replay on something as obvious as catcher's interference.
Yeah, hey, me too, Matt. I don't understand the catcher's interference. How is there not replay on that? Now then, with that being said, I don't know how you miss that call. He didn't just nick the catcher's mitt. I mean, he almost knocked it off his hand. He caught a lot of that catcher's mitt on that swing. You hear the sound. You know what a foul ball sounds like. And then you know what the bat hitting the glove, then the ball sounds like. It's 2 completely different sounds. So if you don't see it, I don't know how you don't hear it and know instantly that was catcher's interference. But, hats off to Michael for staying with that at bat and getting a base hit the left. So it ended up not costing you, but still that was frustrating right there, how he could possibly miss that. Now, on the interference call between first and second, that's a terrible call. I know what the rule states. The defender has a right. I mean, the base runner has a right to the base path. The defender has a right to the ball. So if he's in the base path, the base runner has to go around and let him field the ball. But that wasn't the case at all there. The second baseman was already up out of the baseline. He didn't boot the ball till Michael was past him. And if you slow it down, you can see Michael Turner kind of make a jab to his left. And what he's trying to do, we're taught as base runners, you don't want the second baseman to catch the ball, be able to tag you and throw to first. So, and you don't want to initiate contact. You've got to avoid contact. So if you watch it in real time, you can tell exactly what Michael's trying to do. He was trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to run into him. I don't want him to catch it and tag. So he was trying to get out of the way and avoid contact. But when you slow it down frame by frame, it makes it look like he took kind of a little jab step towards the second baseman. But either way, that had nothing to do with him fielding the baseball. And it's just a horrible call, Matt. And I get it. You can't review every play in baseball, but I don't know how an umpire gets that one wrong because it's right there in front of him. And I'm going to tell you my opinion. And I coach all the time. I don't want umpires down on me. But a lot of times an umpire wants to make that big call. The best umpire is the one that the whole game goes by and you never hear his name. You know what I mean? You don't even notice it. I think this guy wanted to make a big call and he did it, and it was the wrong call.
After they won that game Friday night, I thought back to something that Van Horn had said, I don't know, maybe a week or 2 weeks earlier. And it was that he had told his team, you can't let the things that you can't control affect you. You can't let the wind be an excuse for the reason that the offense isn't performing. You can't let an umpire's strike zone be the reason for why you're not pitching well. And, I just thought about that. And like we said earlier, it fired them up. And I think that call was the reason, maybe not the reason that they won Friday night's game, but it certainly gave them a real big jolt. But it really goes back to what Van Horn was saying, a week or two earlier, that they're able to, and I hate the word adversity. I think it's overused, but we'll use it here in this context. They were able to overcome that adversity in the baseball game and still win on the road against a really good team.
Yeah. And I really think I agree with you 100%. I think it fueled their fire. I think when that happened, there's just something about this team. And I really think it made them mad. And they were different after that. It's crazy how just, the whole mental side of baseball, you could talk about it all day, but sometimes just something that small can just flip that switch inside of you, and it just changes you. It changes things on the field. It just changes the whole team approach, and I can just see the momentum shift right there. But regardless of it, it was just a terrible call, and I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Massage Envy has been voted the best day spa and best massage in all of Northwest Arkansas. Great therapists and estheticians go along with a new service that I am truly excited about. Rapid Tension Relief uses a special tool that will melt the tension and soreness away. Trust me, you will not be disappointed in the results. I highly recommend this feature along with a total body stretch assisted stretch program. Whether you are competing at a high level or just want to relax, these services are for everyone. Massage, rapid tension relief, total body stretch, deep muscle treatment massage, you choose. Or you can try any combination of those. So the next time you're feeling tight, make sure to call my friends at Massage Envy.
Want more coverage of your home team? Download the Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Check out the Fan Zone and get up-to-the-minute videos, podcasts, and features on football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. Search for Whole Hog Sports on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire at home. And take it with you on the go by downloading it for your mobile device in your app store. The Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Get it today.
Grease Pig, this is Mike.
Coming in hot, so I can just stay in my vehicle during my oil change?
That's right. The Grease Pig wants to help keep you safe, so now you can stay in your vehicle during your oil change.
These guys are working like a pit crew.
That's part of our 17-point inspection, where we check your belts and hoses, we check and fill all your fluids, and offer full repair on all vehicles. And of course, we use Castrol products.
Why do I smoke coffee?
You know our waiting room is still open.
And give up front row seats to my own oil change? No, thank you. You're doing awesome. Mike, I think I'm making them uncomfortable.
Get into the Grease Pig, your local automotive specialist for over 20 years.
Welcome back to the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast. Let's take a look at the week ahead, presented by Grease Pig.
The last home series of the regular season begins Friday as the Razorbacks take on number 21 Vanderbilt at Baum-Walker Stadium. Game times this weekend: Friday at 6:30, Saturday at 6:30, and Sunday at 2. Friday is fireworks night at Baum-Walker Stadium, and on Saturday before the game, they'll have their senior day ceremony. Several seniors going through the ceremony this year, a byproduct of COVID, the shortened draft. Typically you don't see a whole lot of seniors on senior day at baseball. You're going to see a half dozen or more go through senior day ceremonies before the Razorbacks play Vanderbilt on Saturday night. The Commodores come into the series with a 32-15 record overall, but they're just 12-12 in the SEC. It's been a little bit of a disappointment this year, I think, for Vanderbilt, Bubba, based on where they typically are. This is a team that they might be able to backdoor their way into hosting a regional, but more likely the Commodores are going to have to go on the road for the regional round and the super regional round, and we're just not used to seeing that from a Tim Corbin coach team.
Yeah, I think so. I think their only hope of hosting, I think they still have a shot, and they think they have a shot. They'd have to take 2 out of 3 against us. I think they'd have to have a really good weekend next weekend. But yeah, you're right. Here's the thing, man. I look at this team. I look at their pitching staff. I look at their offense, and I'm like, this team looks better than 12-12.
You look at that 12-12 record, Bubba. They were swept by Tennessee, but there were some bad series losses in there for Vanderbilt. They lost a series at South Carolina this year. So it's just been kind of a weird season for them, but they do come into this a little hot because they did play A&M okay a couple of weeks ago, and then they won the Georgia series last week, and they're coming off a game against Indiana State on Tuesday night where they tied it with a steal of home with 2 outs in the 9th inning, and they end up winning it in 11. You always kind of look at what a team's done in its last several games, and to Vanderbilt's credit, they have been able to turn things around a little bit here lately.
I think so, and I still look at that 12-12 record, and to me it doesn't compute, but they are coming together kind of at the right time. It was a big series win for them at Georgia. By the way, on talking about the win against Indiana State last night, if you're a left-handed pitcher and you've got Enrique at third base, are you not going to pay attention to him just a little bit? Because Bradfield right there, he's trying to score. So that was kind of a surprising thing. I don't know if anyone saw that or not. I appreciate that to me. But the South Carolina loss, the series loss there early on, just baffled me. I couldn't believe that. But they are coming on right now, and they're playing really good baseball right now, and I think it's going to be a great series for us this weekend.
The Week Ahead is brought to you by the Grease Pig. For 20 years, they have specialized in serving UA students, faculty, and staff with 2 locations in Fayetteville on College Avenue and MLK Boulevard. The Grease Pig has experience for all your repair needs and, of course, complete service oil changes, staffed with ASE certified master technicians. They also provide tire and alignment services at their location on College Avenue. The Grease Pig, it's all about taking care of you, a proud supporter of the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast. Bubba, we mentioned the pitching for Vanderbilt. That's the strength of this team. They come into the series against Arkansas ranked 4th nationally in ERA with a 3.25 ERA and 4th nationally in WHIP with a WHIP of 1.16. When you look at Arkansas, they're up there too in those 2 stats. I think they're 12th in WHIP, they're 5th in ERA. It really feels like this series is going to come down to who can hit well, because you expect both teams to pitch. Which team can have maybe a little bit better game than normal from an offensive perspective might be the key in this one.
I think so, and I give the advantage to the Razorbacks there because we're at home at Baum-Walker, and our guys like standing in that batter's box at home at Baum-Walker Stadium. I think that's going to definitely be a boost for us. They do have some guys that can throw it, though. You look at some of their numbers, and they're really good. You look at, we went into Auburn. I knew we were going to score runs in Auburn. I didn't think they had a guy that could shut us down. But you look at this lineup here. Or this pitching staff here. I mean, they got some guys that can throw it. Little started last Friday. He's got really good number, Christian Little. I don't know if he'll be the Friday night guy. McIlvain's really good numbers. But I will say that, Nate Thompson, and Bobby Wernis, the staff, they do a great job of game planning against these guys. And so I think we're going to go out with a really good approach this weekend. I think we're going to find a way to get it done.
With Little, I don't know, Bubba, maybe he's been injured. It just surprises me to see how many innings he has pitched this year. I think it's 18 innings in SEC play, 27 innings overall. This was the guy that they were comparing to Kumar Rocker last year during the College World Series, saying that this might be the next Kumar Rocker, big right-hander, could really throw hard. He started games in Omaha. I think he might have even started during that national championship series against Mississippi State. Kind of an X factor, I think, for this weekend, whether or not Little is on his game or off.
Like, so you look at his SEC numbers, 18 innings, 11 hits. The league's hitting 172 against him, 21 strikeouts, 5 walks. That's pretty good numbers right there. Do we know? And I've watched him pitch, and he has a lot of the same mannerisms of Kumar Rocker and similar stuff. I mean, he's got a big arm, and so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if he's the guy that gets the Friday night start. But I still like our approach and a game plan against this guy, and I think we'll do well.
The pitcher who I think has been their number one pitcher throughout the season has been Chris McIlvain, the junior right-hander. And I don't know if maybe there was some Thursday, Friday, back to Thursday, weird scheduling quirks in Vanderbilt's schedule or not. But for whatever reason, he's gone from being their number one starter in some series to now being their number two starter. At least that was the way it was against Georgia last week. And so this might be kind of an instance like what we saw against Auburn last week. Again, we don't know who Vanderbilt's going to start in game one, but where you leave it TBA and you trust the final two starters more than maybe you trust the guy who starts on Friday.
Yeah, it could be. They might do the same script they did against Georgia. It worked. They got 2 out of 3 against Georgia, but I tell you, McIlvain's got really good numbers. I don't know why he wouldn't be your Friday night guy, because his numbers are pretty impressive. 45 innings, 27 hits, opponents in the SEC hitting 169 against him. That's pretty good numbers right there, Matt. So I'm a little surprised to see that he wouldn't be the guy they go with on Friday night, but we'll see what happens.
Carter Holton has been their other starter most weekends. He started all 8 SEC weekends this season. He's only thrown 38 in the third inning, so he doesn't go nearly as deep into games as McIlvain does. He's got a 4.46 ERA in SEC play. It goes back to what we were talking about last week, Bubba. If you're expecting teams to have 3 starters who are going to just completely shut down the opposition every weekend, outside of Tennessee this year, it just doesn't exist in the SEC. There's always that weaker link, it feels like, at the back end.
Yeah, you're right. And it's so important to get on that guy Friday night. If you can get on that Friday night guy, get him out of the game, get in that bullpen early, you can do a lot of damage the rest of the weekend. So I think it's really important that we go out Friday night, take care of business, get it done. And I love where our lineup's going, Matt. I feel like we're just getting a little bit better every weekend. I think the at-bats, the lineup's starting to click a little bit, and we're coming together at just the right time of year.
There are some position players who probably will be familiar names to anyone who's watched Vanderbilt in the past years. Dominic Keegan is still with them. Spencer Jones, you mentioned Enrique Bradfield Jr. earlier. So there are some names, but I think that, maybe the struggles for Vanderbilt this season, aside from the fact that they lost the 2 best starting pitchers in college baseball a year ago in Rocker and Leiter, is the fact that they lost a lot of position players off that team last year as well.
Yeah, they did. I think the key with this, to me, this lineup seems pretty much top heavy. I think if we can just kind of manage Dominic Keegan, Spencer Jones is a good player, Enrique Bradfield, keep him off the bases. And I know that's easier said than done, but, I feel like that we can maneuver through this lineup really well. I just don't think that the bottom part of their lineups, I don't think it's as balanced as our lineup is. And I think we're going to do fine there, but Dominic Keegan's the real deal. He's a good player. And Enrique Bradford, anytime he's on base, things tend to happen good for them. So I think that's kind of the key, is just maneuvering those 2 guys.
Yeah, that stolen base of home on Tuesday night, that was his 34th steal of the season, Bubba. You know how many attempts?
How many?
34.
Sweet. That's all right, though.
I think he was 42 of 46 last year, right?
But you know what? That doesn't faze me a bit, because I look at our pitchers. Our pitchers do such a great job of holding runners on, and then Michael Turner does a great job of throwing runners out. So I think our staff just does an awesome job of being quick to the plate, keeping the runner close, and giving our catcher a chance to throw him out at second. So I think that's kind of the great equalizer there. But you know what? If we can just keep him off of base, we don't have to worry about that.
For Arkansas this week, they played the series at the end of final exams. And I've always said that I think it's, I don't know if trap is the right word, but I always am a little leery of how a team's going to play when they're coming off of finals. We've seen this with baseball before. When they played this final regular season series of the year, it's always because they're coming off of final exams. You're dealing with other things like graduation and family in town for that. And I just feel like it can be a distracting week for players. And you've gone through that before as a college athlete. I wonder what your thoughts are as it pertains to all of these other things going on this week, exams, graduation, and how you think that might affect Arkansas's mindset.
Well, I think it is what you let it be, Matt. For me, the minute I was done with my last class, there was a giant weight off my shoulder, and I'm like, okay, woo, now we can focus on baseball. And for me, it's just baseball 24/7. Then it's almost like being in professional baseball. You don't have classes to worry about. You just got to wake up and go play baseball. And there's nothing better than that. So I always loved it. As soon as that last class was over, there was, family, graduation, whatever it is, that didn't bother me, because it was all baseball from then on. And when it's like that, that's a beautiful thing.
Auburn last week was coming off of final exams. I don't know if that's why they lost to Arkansas, but just something that I always kind of look at. It's like the basketball team. They always play their game down in North Little Rock at the end of the fall final exams, and they never really play that well down there. Now, a lot of times they'll end up winning those games, but it just always seems like there's really close games and they don't play quite up to their potential. I don't know if there's anything to that. It's just something I've always observed. For Arkansas this week, what do you think the keys are for the Razorbacks in this series against Vanderbilt?
I think the keys for this weekend, Matt, are just our pitching staff to go out and continue to do what it's been doing. I think we can hold their offense down. I think we've got the weapons to do it. I think the starting pitch, and if it falters a little bit, we got enough talent in that bullpen to hold this lineup down and give our offense a chance to work. And I really think we're gonna put up some runs. That they've got a few guys with good numbers, but I like our approach, our game plan at the plate. I think we're going to do fine against these guys. But I really think you said it earlier. It's going to come down to who can hit, because we know both teams have really strong pitching. So it's really about going up there with a game plan at the plate and executing that plan and really getting pitches to hit. Don't fall into the trap of swinging at the pitcher's pitch. Get pitches. Hitters pitches, take that borderline pitch, get a pitch in the zone, and do some damage with it.
Conditions for the series this weekend should be pretty good, Bubba. You look at Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, all are going to be warm days. There is a 50% chance for thunderstorms Friday night, so that might have to be something that we watch a little bit closer. Mentioned having the good conditions, good weather conditions for this weekend. Probably going to have the biggest crowds that we've seen this year at Baum-Walker. And Bubba, I'm sure you've heard this from people. Of course, they had the changeover before the season in terms of who could sit where based on your donation level. And you probably heard a lot of people talking about, are there more empty seats at Baum-Walker this year than in past years? So I actually went and did a little bit of research and got some ticket scan numbers this year versus the last time that they had full capacity for a full season, which was 2019. And ironically, in 2019, it was a very similar schedule. You had LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss on the schedule that year. The SEC East teams were different. But entering the final weekend of the season in 2019 and entering the final weekend of this season, they're actually averaging about 250 more tickets scanned per game than they were in 2019. So even though it might look like there are more empty seats, maybe there's more empty seats behind home plate where the cameras are pointed. There are more people in the ballpark this year than there were in 2019, the last year that you could really compare attendances.
It's surprising to hear that, Matt, because from my vantage point, I look and it doesn't seem like we've had those big, crazy bomb walker crowds that we've had in the past. Now, LSU was really good. We had good crowds there, but I think the weather's been bad. I'm telling you, it's tough to sit there when you've got a south wind at 20 miles an hour blowing in your face. And so I think a lot of people, they don't like that. I just don't think we've had the really good weather that we've had in the past. So I'm surprised to see that ticket sales are a little bit above, where they were in the past. But I tell you, this weekend looks awesome, and I think we're going to pack that place in, and it's going to be a crazy environment this weekend, and I can't wait.
I heard Hunter Yurachek talking about this on Tommy Kraft's radio show a couple of weeks ago. He was asked about attendance, and he said, I think people kind of misremember what the 2019 season was really like, and I think by that what he means is it's like this pretty much every year, is that the crowds just kind of grow throughout the season. And I think that we have a tendency to remember the regionals and the super regionals, or the Florida crowd last year, which was so unique because it was the first time they had allowed full attendance all season. And of course, Arkansas clinched the SEC championship that weekend, which was kind of the cherry on top. But I guess what I'm seeing from these numbers that we've analyzed is that this season really hasn't been a whole lot different than other seasons. And I think what you're going to see from the Vanderbilt series this weekend is probably the best home field advantage they've had all year.
I think so. And you're right. People judge it off of the Florida series last year, the regional, super regional, and those are just unmatched. You can't top those crowds. And so I think your expectations are so high that when it's just a normal sellout of 10,000 people, you're like, oh, okay, ho hum. It's not that big crowd, but it really is. It's impressive, and I still say this is the best environment in college baseball. We have the best fans. Even when we're not packed in there, they're still loud, they're vocal, they're educated, they understand the game, and it's just I think it's going to be crazy this weekend.
It should be noted, I haven't analyzed how this works into all of it, but there have been more seats added since the end of the 2019 season. There's more suite seats, more obviously the Lowe's boxes in right field, and they've got that new porch on top of right field where I think they allow about 250 people, standing room only tickets. I expect it to be packed this weekend, especially Saturday and Sunday, as the Razorbacks could potentially go for a series win over the Commodores at Baum Walker Stadium. Again, the game times this weekend: 6:30 Friday, 6:30 Saturday, and 2 o'clock on Sunday. Come to WholeHogSports.com all weekend. We'll have all the coverage that you need from the Razorbacks and the Commodores. We're coming down to the wire. The Razorbacks, like I said, could potentially win the SEC West this weekend. For Bubba Carpenter, I'm Matt Jones. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next week on the Whole Hog Baseball Podcast.
The proceeding has been a production of WholeHogSports.com. Look for our latest podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast store. And visit us anytime at WholeHogSports.com for the latest news and commentary.